The following is a presentation of the Black Hollywood Live Network, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. Hollywood redefined. From Los Angeles, California, streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is Black Hollywood Live, Breaking Into, featuring in-depth interviews with today's most influential entertainment figures, highlighting their tips, tricks, and techniques on breaking into the entertainment industry.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host of Black Hollywood Live, Breaking Into.
Hello and welcome. There we go. There's the music. I was like, where's the music?
Where's that?
Where's the music? I love it. It is the first Breaking Into of 2016. Hey. Woo. You know, we like to do on the show. I love it. I love it. I'm your host, James Lott Jr. And you're here on Black Hollywood Live, of course. You can follow me on Twitter at BlackHopeLA, and that's BLAKHOPELA, and use the hashtag Breaking Into. We just continue the conversation, of course. And we have a Facebook page, Breaking Into, of course, and we have more on the artists that I have on my shows, some behind-the-scenes stuff, and all kinds of Breaking Into goodness. I am so glad, because I have a guest today. I mean, I've been working on, I know I've been gone for a month, but I'm back. I'm black by popular demand. That's right, kids. That's an oldie but goodie. And I have some great guests lined up for you guys. Now we're back in 2016, and it starts off with a guy that I've been wanting to talk to, because I love spoken word. I love the spoken word. I love it. He's a guy who's been on a show you probably heard of called Verses and Flow a couple of seasons. He was also part of the San Diego Poetry Slam team. You guys came fifth?
Fifth in the nation, yeah.
That's quite amazing.
Yeah.
He's released CDs, a chapbook. We're going to talk about what that is, so if you guys don't know what that is. And he has a DVD documentary on him. And it's titled Rise to the Illest, The Journey of the Saint, Poetry Journey of the Saint. Lem, the Saint Gonsalves.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on. So, okay, where did the Saint come from?
That's a good question. So when I first started writing poetry, my dad's a pastor. And so I grew up in church and the whole nine. And I started writing poetry kind of in church, just something different to bring to the table. Yeah. And I would, do performances at church, maybe a couple other churches here and there. And that was pretty much it. And so once I started kind of bringing it outside the church, I was like, okay, well, it would be cool to have, a name. I didn't want to, not that I don't like my name.
Yeah, no, you like your name.
But, I thought it would be cool to do something like that. So I remember it was probably one of my first features ever as a featured poet. Okay. And I remember the lady was like, I'm going to call you up. And it just hit me. And she was like, and I was like, call me the Saint. And she was like, okay. So it wasn't really a whole lot of thought process in it. It was just something that just came to me that in that moment. And then, once, it stuck. And then I've been, going by that for 12, 13 years.
Wow, okay.
But, I think a lot of it culminates from, again, my background, being in church and my faith and things of that nature. And there it is.
Now, I'll tell you, like I said, I was excited to talk to you because I'm a writer. First, before I do anything else, write story, and I've written songs. But in the last year or so, I've started to write poetry and spoken word pieces. And actually, on the Facebook page today, I posted something that I did called Choices. I was told by another spoken word artist just to put it out there, just read it, put it out there, get over the stage, forget over the fright of it, and do it. So it's on the page, to bring it to your page, and I love it. I mean, I grew up with Gil Scott-Heron.
Okay.
That's somebody my parents played all the time.
Oh, yeah. Very, very famous poet.
I mean, and he's somebody who, when he went away for a while. When he came back and put out the album I'm New Here, there's a song called Running that I play all the time. Wow. It's just, I'm not even saying it's a song, but it's a piece. Set to some music. There's some sparse music in it. But it's him just, he's telling it to you. You can feel the years stuff. When you are performing, this is what I want to ask you. The first question I want to ask you, when you are performing, how does it feel?
It's exhilarating. I'll say this: for me getting into poetry, I was one of those type of persons where I was kind of, jack of all trades. I could sing a little bit, I could act a little bit. I love being in front of people. Even as a kid, I was like a ham. I'd break into. I remember breaking into preschool and getting there, and then I'd literally come into preschool and fall on the ground. and everybody like, "Hi, Lim," and then they would like go back to class. Like I was that dude.
Yes.
So growing up, I didn't mind being in front of people, but for poetry, it was one of those things that it really gave me a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And when I'm on stage and I'm doing a piece, it's very euphoric in the sense because it doesn't matter what kind of piece I'm doing. I could be doing something funny, something heartfelt, something political, but it's the reaction I get from the people in the audience. And it's, after I'm done, people coming up to me and be like, "Yo, that piece really touched me," or "I really feel what you said," or, "I like bacon too," and, things of that nature.
Yes,
So it's really just a really dope experience being on stage and just sharing a piece of you.
Because you're having to expose yourself, aren't you?
Absolutely. I mean, a great analogy is that you really feel naked on stage, especially if you're doing something personal. And I know you probably heard the saying that it's easy to say something in front of a large crowd than it is to one person.
Yes,
and it's very true. And I think that's why a lot of people get into poetry, at least a lot of people that I've come across over the years, they get into it because they really wanted to say something, but it was very hard for them to come by saying it to, their family or friends. And so they basically put it in a poem and set it on stage. And now they're doing it all the time. And it's something that becomes a part of them.
I've gone to the New York Poetry Society.
Oh, wow.
Many times.
Oh, wow.
I love it. I mean, I've walked out of there crying.
Yeah.
I've walked out of there exhilarated.
Yes.
There were different times I've gone. It's been different experiences. I don't know how they pick their lineups, like how they decide to do it. It's a very small place, and just everybody comes in, and you're piled in, and you're sweaty, and, and somebody's on the couch, somebody next to you in a chair. It's like it's crazy. And I didn't get a chance to go this last time I was in New York. I was kind of sad I wanted to go, but you're right. They say stuff that's just like, wow, you really just told me about your relationship, or wow, your dad did what to you, or wow, they really do. So do you do a lot of personal pieces yourself?
I've actually, that's something that I've kind of come into the last like 3 or 4 years in my writing. It was something I kind of, pushed aside, for a couple of reasons. One, I really didn't think, I had a lot internal to say. I really didn't think anyone would really vibe on me in that level because of, maybe, what I've gone through in my life or what have you. And then the other thing was, it was just something difficult. Whenever you do something that's personal, it's always, for some people they can do it and they're just fine with it. Like, "Oh, I'm gonna tell you about how, my dad beat me when I was, young or something." And to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, if that happened to me, that would be very hard for me to say. But that's why I strayed from it for a long time. And then one of my mentors, well, actually, two people. One, a person I really look up to in poetry. His name is Sean William from the Bay Area. Yeah, shout out. And then also my mentor back in Stockton, where I kind of cultivated my craft, Tama Brisbane. She basically said, "You need to write personal. You really have something to say inside, and people need to hear what you got to say." And so that's when I started to delve into it. And it was very difficult at first, and it still is. It still is difficult, but I'm becoming better at it in the sense that it's free. It's interesting what you can do and you write on paper. And there's some things that I've written and performed that I'm like, I forgot that was there. That was something that was buried or what have you, and, able to bring it to light. And when I share it, and again, the feedback is just, it's amazing because the people then feel you. They feel you feel very tangible. And then, you do your poem and then it's like, oh my gosh, I really felt you and you really touched me. And I'm telling you, man, it's nothing like it. And I'm sure that, people who are musicians or singers that, do personal songs, it's the same feeling. So that's what I get, when I do those things.
It's funny. I had a brief experience. I got to work with one of our guests on the show was Joshua Silverstein. Another show that I do, he beatboxed to one of my spoken word pieces.
Oh, really?
We did it on the fly. He's like, "James, I'll be present with you. Just don't worry about what I'm doing. Do it." And the piece I do is called Choices. I'm going to release it soon. It's going to be online. I'll release it soon. I'm putting it together. And it was about, when I wrote it, it was about always having to leave my daughter because I wasn't with the parent. I had to go off and work or whatever. And now it's about leaving my granddaughter sometimes. She's in Sacramento. They're all in Sacramento.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so having
Sacramento,
to leave.
shout
Sacramento, Sacktown. That's right.
Born and raised.
I was brought there at 11 and kind of, my father was in the Capitol and I was kind of there for a year, off and on for years. But my kids and grandkids, hi you guys, are all there. And having to always leave, I'm so close to these little girls, I'm so close to them, that the first part of it was about my daughter and the next one was about my granddaughter.
Oh, wow.
And so when we sat and he did the beatboxing to my words. That's the first time I ever did that before. And you're right, I had an out-of-body experience.
Wow.
And I was like, I want to do this again. I want to do this again. I want to do it again. So, I mean, I can understand. I mean, it's a little piece of what you've been doing for years. Mm-hmm. It's addictive.
Yeah. It's like getting a tattoo, you know?
Yeah, right. You do it once, you do it again.
Once, and it's like you want to do it again. And I think a lot of it is because of, again, the feeling that you get from it. And, and we talked about, personal poems, and there's a lot of stuff politically, that people write about. And you look at some of the earlier poets, and that were activists, and they would, do these poems at these speakeasies or these underground areas, and they would, be talking about the injustices in society or what have you. And I feel that. And it's like when you can say that and you have this captive audience that's there, and I think it's interesting to basically do a poem, and I think the thrill of it, one of the thrills, is to do a poem and change somebody's mind about something. I think that's awesome. And just because it's something that you believe strongly, and you presented it in a way, that people can now like, oh, I never thought of it in that manner, or I never looked at it that way. So it's great. Like you said, it's very euphoric and it's addicting.
It's I'm like, I want to do it again. I'm ready. But again, when I was reading your bio, it's kind of funny. You're like, I kind of got into it, so so I can talk to girls. But it's right. It's a through line I've met with some of my guests who are performers. It starts out something where you're uncomfortable about yourself about something. Can you talk about that a little bit? Where you were kind of uncomfortable, so you found an outlet to.
Oh sure. Well, I mean, and this is something that I kind of my first personal poem ever. I kind of talk about this. Didn't talk about it prior, but I'm very much an extrovert. I told you earlier about being a ham and things of that nature. However, I always have suffered from low self-esteem. Okay. And it was something I'd never really talk about, and didn't really mention it to my family, didn't really mention it to my close friends. I kind of would just deal out on that level, and it was one of those things where until I wrote about it, then I could own it, and then I could deal with it and put it in the forefront instead of keeping it on the back burner. And so one of the poems, and it's called "Exposed," is the name of the poem.
Okay.
And I talk about a number of things about me personally, but one of those things being that, and now people can kind of see where I'm coming from and why I may act, act in some ways that I do, or talk in some of the ways that I do, even though I'm always trying to clown and I'm always trying to be, just always try to have a good attitude, but it's just one of my struggles. And it's amazing how you can put that into a spoken word piece or into a page poem, and how not only is it freeing, but it's going to free somebody else.
Well, you make a good point. You can do it comedically, because there's all kind. Okay, so let's break this down for a minute, because there are some folks. Okay, because I had a couple questions from folks who were like, "Dude, I was going to talk to you about this," and they said, "Ask him this, ask him that." So you might be better to answer it. Okay, one. Explain the difference between, if there is a difference between spoken word and rap. Is there a difference? Is it semantics?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, a lot of people, and I think it's based on your opinion.
Okay.
I think some people's opinion, and I've heard this before, is that spoken word or poetry is just rap without the music.
Okay.
So I've heard that. Okay. And I can agree to that to some degree.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But I think poetry in itself is such a vast category.
Yes.
I mean, you have so many different types. You have limericks, you have prose, you have haikus, you have sonnets. These are different types of poetry. So to say poetry and rap, there's a huge difference because of the different styles of poetry. Rap is always going to be rhyming. Yes. You're always going to be rhyming, and you're going to be doing it to a beat. Okay. Whereas poetry can be rhymey. You can rhyme in your poems, but you can also not rhyme, and you can also be very abstract, and you can also do this, and you can also do that. So it's when you really get down to brass tacks, it is different in that regard. But for people who say poetry is, just again rap without the music, yes, that is one facet. But I think it's a lot more.
I think it's also that you answered it perfectly. I think also because they say some songs are poetry too. Obviously, I mean.
Absolutely.
So I guess you're right. It is kind of semantic, but I liked your answer. Somebody else also wanted me to. I had to explain to somebody that there are different types of spoken word. And my one friend was like, but it always seems sad. It always seems angry. And they're always upset about something. Can you just elaborate that? That's not always the case. It can be celebratory also, right?
Yes. Well, as I was saying before, there's many different types. And I consider myself as an artist pretty diverse. You know, when I started writing again, I wrote a lot about my faith. I'm very comfortable writing funny. One of my first poems ever was called Why, and it was just a really funny poem about just why different things are happening. And so so, but yes, I think when people hear, they say, oh, spoken word, they may, depending on where they are or depending on the type of venues they may go to, I think there's a lot of characteristics. And every venue, like you talked about going to, in New York, the Nuyorican, and you talked about, there's a venue that I frequent. I consider my home venue here in Hollywood, which is called the Poetry Lounge, which is literally the biggest weekly open mic in the country. Yeah. So I think wherever you go or wherever type of poetry you're listening to, there may be a theme in that typical venue that you may hear a lot of. Maybe there's a lot, and it's also regional too, because if you go, let's say down south, what they're going to be saying and what they're going to be doing poems about is probably going to be very different than poems on the West Coast. Just like music or hip hop. Take hip hop. Take hip hop. Hip hop on the East Coast is different than hip hop on the West Coast because it's a different experience. It's still hip hop, but it's a different experience. And hip hop down south is different than hip hop on the West Coast. So I think depending on where you are, there's definitely thematic material that people write about. But as far as when you get down to poetry or spoken word, which is poetry spoken out loud, in essence, that's all it is. Poetry spoken out loud. There's a vast array of topics you can talk about. Now, when you get into slam poetry, that's a difference. But again, still a wider range. Slam is just basically a style of poetry in the sense that it's a competition. And so the difference between spoken word and slam is just that slam is a competition. You have to do it within 3 minutes and you're being judged. Whereas spoken word, you're just doing your poem. So to say that it's one thing is not true. Yeah. It can be a total, and I've seen everything. I've seen people do poems, like I have a poem about how much, like I told them before, a poem how much I love bacon.
I love bacon.
The whole poem is how much I love bacon. But I also have a poem about a friend of mine who contracted breast cancer, and I talk about her story. It's all spoken word, it's all poetry, but it's different types of where you come from. And I think really it's where you are here. Because I think people write about where they are here, or they should be.
They should be.
And so where they are here, maybe they're dealing with a lot of injustice. They're dealing with, look at society and everything that's going on. Yeah. And so that's where they're at. And so they may write a lot of poems about that because that's where they are here. Yeah. Or, they may have internal struggles that they deal with. Maybe they have a sickness or ailment, and that's something that plagues them. So they may write about that a lot because, again, that's where they are.
How do you find your cadence and style? Like, how did you, because there's different types of ways of delivery. So how did you find yours? And what would you classify yours and how did you find it?
Oh, guys, that's, you're really breaking it all the way down.
I am breaking it down. That's what we do. Breaking into, we break it down, the name.
Okay.
They didn't warn you about me, so I do.
Did not. So I think for me, it was just whatever I felt comfortable with. I think that when I first started, I definitely did some things that kind of took away from the poem when you talk about cadence, because of how I delivered the poem, and it was just what I was comfortable with. So that's what I appreciate really about slam, because in slam poetry, if you end up being fortunate to be on a slam team, you work on that. You work on your delivery, because slam it really gets down to, because it's a competition, you break everything all the way down. Your cadence, your how you're telling your story, and again, it has to be in 3 minutes, and the whole point is you're trying to appeal to these judges and the audience. And so that's what I appreciate about slam, and that's one of the reasons why I did it, because I wanted to become better at my craft. And so what slam was able to do is, like I said, through the coaches that I worked with, and also my fellow teammates, you work on your cadence, you work on your delivery, you work on how you're telling your story, you work on your voice inflection. It's almost like it's almost like being taking voice lessons. As a singer, you take voice lessons because you're trying to improve. You can already sing, or hopefully. But you're trying to improve on your voice and how you work your voice and how you work your instrument. And it's the same thing with that. So I think it's definitely gotten better over the years of when I first started and now. And there's still things that I have to work on. My coaches always tell me that, when I get really excited, my voice, I growl a little bit.
Oh, really? Oh, fun.
Yeah. No, it's not fun. They say, no, don't do that. Because my voice gets distorted. but I'm like, I'm really into it.
You're in it.
But,
right.
It's something that can take away from the poem because people may not understand me when I'm doing that. You know what I'm saying?
You're trying to be clear. You're trying to be clear so they can get the message of what's going on.
Exactly. Or I'm going too fast and I run over my words. All of that kind of stuff.
I talk fast too sometimes.
Yeah.
I have to watch that.
Yeah, me too. So that's what it is. That's what it is. But I think, again, I've improved over the years, and it's something that I'm still feel like I can work on.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things I can work on. I always strive to be a better writer.
That's where it starts.
Yeah, and I think that when I first started, I think because I didn't have a problem being in front of people, a lot of people deal with that, and it's hard for them to get in front. They're nervous.
Yeah.
I didn't have that, but I think that I always needed to improve my writing. So now I'm constantly trying to improve my writing. I have mentors, or people that I respect, look over poems after I'm done and give me tips about editing and how to make it better or how to make it stronger or how to, whatever I'm trying to convey, put it across. So
you're bringing up something that I always talk about on the show. I talk about this on this show all the time. I always say it takes a village to raise me. Mm-hmm. And you talk about your village. I mean, we as our people come from village mentality anyway. Back in the day, and I love that. Hearing from you that you have people in place in your life that
absolutely
help you out, and just kind of the learning doesn't stop, does it?
Oh, never. Well, for me, no, not at all. I mean, maybe for some people, but for me, I feel like this is a craft that I can always improve in, and always continue to grow in. There's no ceiling, with it. And again, because I will always want to get better at whatever I'm doing, and this is a huge focus of my life. I've been doing it for now about 13 years professionally.
Okay.
And so because I want to be serious about my craft, I want just to, not just, I'm a poet and I do poems every now and again. No, this is something that I really want to grow, mature in, and continue to improve and continue to get better because of where I want to take it.
When did you make that transition from I'm a poet, just saying stuff, to making it into a career? How did that kind of begin for you?
It took time. It was something I had to be because, again, I told you before, I was jack of all trades. So it was like, I could do this. Oh, this is something new. Okay, I'm going to play with this or whatever. Yes. But I think what happened was when I first, I did my first poem out in the open. I remember it like it was yesterday, 2002.
Okay.
Back in Stockton, California. It was this competition that came to Stockton, but it ended up being a nationwide competition. Yeah, of all places. Yeah. And so that's how I met my mentors.
Okay, good.
Because I entered the competition and they saw what I was able to bring, and I did my poem, and it was well received. And excuse me, 1 second.
No problem. That's kind of cool though. Like, you tell people that you never know where you live, opportunities still can knock on the door.
Right. Exactly.
That's what it is.
And so as I continued, I started sending me on these shows and doing that kind of stuff. Okay. And then it was cool at first, and then I was like, I don't know. And so I kind of took a back seat to it.
Okay.
I didn't write really as much, and this is like the first few years that I was doing this. Okay. And then all of a sudden, I was like, no, this is what I need to do. This is what I'm meant to do. And that's when I started taking off.
Wow. When did you, and now after that, when did you realize you could make a career out of it? When did you really realize it? Make some money or whatever.
I'll tell you. It was a great pinnacle. So back in the Valley, in Modesto, there's you know where Modesto's at?
Yes.
There's a competition that goes on every year called the Ill List. And this is basically a slam competition, and it's an invitational. So the gentleman that runs it, what he does is he brings in poets from all over the country, hand selects them to compete. And it's about 600 people that come every year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's always packed, always sells out. Okay. And so he would leave room for, a local poet to represent. Okay. And so I was going to the venue that he hosted, and I was going, it's a slam, and that's when I did my first slam, and I ended up winning my first slam, which was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. I didn't even expect that. And so that caused me, and that's kind of where I started picking up steam. I was like, I really need to continue writing because I can't come with the same poems.
Right.
So I continued to do that. And then what ended up happening was he picked me for this competition. Wow. And so I did the competition. This is back 2009. Did the competition, and I ended up winning it. The entire thing. Yeah, it was amongst these like poets that are like full time. Some of them are professors, or teachers, or like I said, this is what they do for a living. They tour, ended up winning. And so what it showed me was not that I was better than anybody,
right.
but it showed me that I did have something to say and that I was viable. And so once I won that, literally my career took off, because what I did was I used that as basically
a springboard kind of.
To put me in there and to continue to get better, to continue to improve, and continue to share my voice. And so, so that moment, that was it. I never looked back from that moment. I was toying with it up until that point, and then once that happened, boom, done.
Now, another question someone asked me, and I think I know the answer, but I'm not sure, but can you freestyle a spoken word piece? You can't. You have to write it. It's like acting. You can't really freestyle acting. You can improv, but it's something different. But can you? I mean, it's like, I know it's a weird question to ask, and I'm like, I don't know. Can you? I'm like, it's kind of, I don't know.
It's funny. I've seen no.
Oh, okay.
No, I have. Oh gosh, this is terrible.
Tell me.
This is all. I've never shared this.
Oh, I love it.
I've tried.
Okay.
I tried to do this one time, and it was only because someone had asked me to get up and perform.
Okay.
And at this point, I wasn't memorizing any of my material.
Oh, okay.
So they asked me to perform, and I wasn't prepared. I didn't have my material with me. So I got up there, and I was like, what do I do? You know? So I literally started to freestyle this poem. It was so terrible. It was terrible. Oh, it was terrible. But anyway, that was the one and only time I attempted to do that. I've seen people do it.
Okay.
I don't think it's something that's common in the poetry world.
I think so. Yeah, right.
But there are people that do it. There are people that do it. But typically, if you're getting up, you go to an open mic or you go to again a competition. People are either reading off the paper or they're going from memory. That's typically what you see.
Now, so if I decide to go to an open mic to take my stuff, I can take my paper up and go on my cards and go. Okay, I'm gonna. They don't mind that at first.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. I mean, and you can do that even in the slam competition. You can read. I mean, typically, there's a difference because if you're reading, a lot of people. Again, we're talking about a competition where every finite detail you're working on, and so it's a lot different to basically do a poem from memory. You have more flexibility with the poem. You have your chance to engage the audience, and you have a chance to do things that you couldn't do if you're reading off paper.
Got it.
And so that's why typically in a slam competition you'll see people go off memory. But if you go to your local open mic, like you go to the poetry lounge we were discussing before.
Yeah.
Some people are going from memory and some people are reading. Reading off their phone or reading off the paper or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's nothing that's frowned upon if you read. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. A lot of people do that. And you have a lot of people that are page poets and they don't memorize anything. They literally just do poems off the page.
And they do it with the inflections and everything. They do it kind of, wow.
Or there's some people that, page poets is typically a poet that, typically doesn't read their poem. Their poem is just on the page.
Oh, okay.
So typically, but there's a lot of page poets that will go to poetry readings. Let's say they're coming out with a book and they'll read their poems and they'll read however they want the poem to sound like.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. Got it.
Just like if someone who wrote a book and you're going to their reading. And they're reading, an excerpt from their book. Wow, same thing. Yeah. Have you ever? Because I want to talk about your memory thing because you ever done any acting? Because I'm like, that to exercise that part of your brain is very important to be able to memorize. Absolutely, and there's a lot of that does go hand in hand because there are a lot of poets who are actors, and vice versa, actors who also do poems.
Right.
So because of your memory and because of the performance aspect of it, when you're doing spoken word or performance poetry, yes, it goes hand in hand. I've tried. I've been in some plays here and there, local stuff. When I first moved to LA, I did take some acting classes.
We all did that, of course.
To take some acting classes. I did discover kind of, right away that it wasn't for me. It wasn't something I wanted to venture into. But, of course, if Steven Spielberg called me personally and he said, I have a role for you,
we can turn it down.
Of course.
Come on. Please.
Come on. But am I going to pursue acting? No. No, it's not something that I want to do. But I do know, again, people that are actors and are poets, simultaneously.
How do you memorize? Do you have a system? How do you get it?
Yeah, well, I just kind of changed the system.
Oh, okay.
I used to just kind of take the paper, once I'm done editing the poem, this is how I feel like it. And I would just read a line and then say it from memory. And then I'd read a couple lines, then say those from memory. And kind of just go down until the entire poem is memorized. That's how I started doing it. But then thanks to technology
Yes.
And smartphones and stuff like that, what I'll do is I'll save my poem into my phone,
yeah.
and then I just play it back because, you know, where I work at, I got this kind of commute. So especially when I got into the last couple of teams I was on, I was doing a lot of driving back and forth. I was on the San Diego team, so I would drive from LA to San Diego for rehearsal.
Yeah.
So I would just, you know, put the poem on my phone and then just play it back as I'm driving. And then I would rehearse it and do it back to back. And that's kind of been that's kind of stuck with me. That's been the easiest for me.
It's very smart. Now, you got on Verses and Flow, which is a show that I do watch. So I'm sure I saw you. I'm sure I saw you on there. How did that, the first time, how did that come about?
So I ended up, it's actually a good story. So
Ooh, good, yes.
I tried to get on for the second season, and this is when Hill Harper was hosting.
Yeah. Before Omari came on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I actually, a cousin knows him very well.
Oh, okay.
And so I got invited to go to an event he was putting on, and then I got invited to go to his house.
Oh my.
Yeah,
okay.
right? Crazy.
Okay, sure.
And
he's
so,
a great author, you guys. He has great books out there. I mean,
absolutely.
Hill Harper does, yes.
And so I ended up getting a chance to perform in front of him and his guests.
At his house?
At his house,
Oh,
right?
excuse me.
It's crazy.
Okay.
So, and I was just like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? It was like 2 a.m, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay.
Had you been drinking or anything? Like, were you like, okay?
Yeah, I mean, I had a glass of wine.
Okay.
And that was it.
Okay.
But still, just nerves.
Yes, I'm
just
sure.
nerves,
Yeah, I'm
right?
sure.
So I ended up doing the poem, and everybody loved it. Like, they were just like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. Oh. And I was just like, oh my gosh, yes, so I'm going to get on the show, you know.
Yeah.
Well, luck had it that he didn't host the next season.
Yeah, he did.
That's when
right.
Omari took over.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, now
All that.
you know, start from scratch.
Yeah.
So what I did was I just basically submitted like everybody else.
Okay.
And the process, and you go online and you submit a poem, you give them the written portion of the poem, and that's it. So I had just memorized this poem that I thought would work for the show, seeing what kind of material they used.
Oh, yeah, okay, good. Do the research, folks. Do research, know your audience.
And so I basically had my brother record it for me.
Okay.
I submitted that with the written portion, and then I ended up getting hit back a week later.
Wow,
And
that's
they
fast.
said,
Wow.
yeah, because it was like it was like literally last minute. So it was like they usually do the submission from like November to February. So it was like literally the end of February.
Oh,
so it was
wow.
the last, and it almost missed the deadline. So it was one of those things because some things happened personally. My grandmother ended up passing away, so there was a lot going on.
Yeah, okay.
And so, but anyway, I submitted, got it in, and got contacted.
Wow.
Long story short, I got on the show.
I know, that's crazy.
Yeah. I was like one of the last ones.
Oh, really? It's like, see, again, and timing doesn't always mean it'd be early. It doesn't always mean that. Doesn't say you should always wait around either, but just anything. I mean, just if you're meant to be on there, you'll be on there, I guess.
And that's one of the things that happened, and it was such a blessing. And I had just moved to LA when I got the news.
Wow.
Like, I had just moved in. Like, I moved in Friday, and I got the call Monday. Like, it was crazy. So yeah, I got on the show, did the poem, such a great experience. Okay. And then once you're on the show, then typically, I don't want to say it's easier to get on, but you don't have to go through the same channels.
Process, yeah.
So I submitted again. I didn't get on for the 4th season.
Oh, okay.
So, but then submitted again for the 5th season, and then got back on again.
Why do you think they picked you 5th and not 4th? What was it? Do you think it was the poem? Was it scheduling?
I think it was the poem. I think because when they picked me for the 5th season, I did my Bacon poem, which is a comedic poem. And so I think they wanted comedy for the show.
Okay.
And so they didn't have enough people. And so that's my belief. And so regardless, it worked out.
Now, each time you were on, what was the response from the public? Did you get, because now we have social media and everything now. I mean, how was that?
It was great. Hold on one second.
I just love that. You got on there, you did it. It was just like, it's so great. You get to say you've been on it twice.
I know, it's insane. Sorry, I keep doing this. I've been under the weather, so I'm trying to get.
It's good. We're good.
A lot of talking.
Yes, we're good.
So the response was amazing. Of course, with the thing with Verses and Flow, and this is what I love about the organization as a whole. Okay. Shout out to Dawn Cummings, who is ends up booking the poets on the show. She's a great friend.
Hey, Dawn.
They will support you. So once you're part of the Verses and Flow family, they want to know like when you have shows coming up or when you're releasing any type of material, and they will support you. They will tweet out your show or put it on their Facebook page or anything like that. And the same thing with shows. They'll post out if you have a show show coming up, or if you're doing any type of thing that concerns you as an artist, they want to be a part of that and helping with the promotion of that. So that's amazing. Yeah. And of course, you're on TV, so you become recognized by a whole different audience that may not have seen you before. So that in itself is just an amazing experience. And yeah, it's been awesome. It's been awesome. I mean, just to go to your TV and to see your name, in the DVR, like upcoming, it's crazy. And then, you get to meet, of course, all the people that come on the show. Yeah. So because they typically will have some type of singer or artist.
That's where the verses and flow come from.
Get it, exactly. Stuff, So you end up meeting all these people, and it's just, it's great. It's great. It's a great family and organization to be a part of.
That's very cool. Now, how did you get a DVD documentary on yourself? Like, how does that happen? I mean, like, that's very cool. What is it? What years does it follow you? What is it about?
Well, when you heard me talk about being ended up going to the illest when I ended up winning that competition. Yeah. So my brother is he's a filmmaker, and so up and coming. And so what he wanted to do, and this is how it started, he just wanted to, once I got called to be a part of it, he said, let's just record you for the day. Your process getting together. It was the first time I was going to release my first CD. Okay, yes. So I was getting that together, to have ready to sell at the competition. Mm-hmm. And so he was like, let's record the whole day and just see what happens. Mm-hmm. I was like, all right. So he recorded me from starting in the morning, came to my house, and then the whole preparation for the day, my outfit I picked out, putting together the CD. I mean, the whole nine, driving there, interviewed, some of the people that were a part of it. And so because I won, it was like this great underdog story.
Yeah, totally.
And so that's what it ended up becoming, and that's why it was titled, what it was, Illest Rise to the Journey of the Saint.
Now it's coming together, yes.
Now it makes sense.
Rise to the Illest Poetic Journey of the Saint.
Right. So it was basically my whole day and taped all my poems, and so it was great.
Wow, that's good. And you had 2 CDs you said so far out. Mm-hmm. And also a chapbook. So I know what one is, but can you explain to folks out there, because I remember I was like, what does that mean? Right. I was like, it's an old style way of releasing poetry, and not just a book form, or not just like a regular traditional book form, right?
Right. So a chapbook basically is short for chapter book. That's what it's short for, but people always say chapbook. And it's literally a collection of poems, and it's a way for artists to kind of self-publish, and put their stuff out there. Mm-hmm. And literally it's usually, you have maybe 10 or 20 poems in it. It's something usually you put together yourself.
Like a little leather bound thing or something, or some loose leaf.
Something like that. Yeah. And, people will usually, sometimes they'll sell it online, or they, will have it as product for their show. But that's basically in essence what it is. It's just a booklet form, and it's full of, these poems and stories that you kind of put together, and it allows you to, like I said, do it yourself.
And is there a theme to your chapbooks, or is it just like it's just a collection of stuff that you...
Some people have themes. People that release multiple chapbooks, they may have like a snapshot of time. Like my first chapbook was titled When All the Leaves Turn Brown. And so the reason why I picked that title is because at that point in my life, that's when I felt like there was a change going on. And so when the leaves turn brown, it's a new season. Yes. And so there was a change in my writing, a change in what was going on with me as a person. And so that's why I titled that. And so a lot of the poems in the book reflect that.
Wow, that's good. And on your CDs, how did that process go? Were you recorded live, or are they collections of stuff that you put together?
It's the same thing. It's just basically I put together, in a sense, how can I say? The first one was a lot of live performances, and in the second one was a mixture of live and studio work. So the first one dealt a lot with just me coming out. It was a lot of my first work. So you have a lot of my faith-based poems in there, in that particular CD. And then the second one that I did was more of a mixed bag, and basically like it was some studio work. So I work with same brother. He also is a producer. So I work with him doing some of the poems, and then some of them were live. As a matter of fact, one of them was the poem that helped me win the illest was in that particular one. And it dealt with, that particular poem dealt with a job I used to have, which was LGBT worker. eligibility worker, or welfare worker.
Okay.
It's more common, caseworker.
Yeah, caseworker.
And I talked about basically the struggles I had, and with men who end up being on welfare and take advantage of women, basically to kind of take care of them. Wow. It's something I would see as a worker time and time again.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So.
Wow, that's very interesting. Now, okay. He's worked with some artists out there, and a couple of them stuck out for me because I was just like, okay, I got to ask this, of course. You've worked with Common, Lupe Fiasco, Belle Biv DeVoe, that girl's poison, and Faith Evans. I just wonder, how was Belle Biv DeVoe? Because growing up for me, I mean, I grew up with them, and they're like, I mean, of New Edition, all that. I mean, how was that for you?
Right. Well, that was amazing. I mean, this was basically those artists you mentioned. I didn't necessarily work with them personally. Okay. It was like for Common, Lupe Fiasco, I opened for them. So they were in concert.
Two great artists.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I opened for them. So, which was the one when I did Common, that was like probably one of the best shows I ever had because it was in Stockton, where I cultivated my craft.
Wow.
And to be in front of people that I kind of grew up in poetry and then to perform in this huge venue in Stockton. So that was amazing. With Belle Biv DeVoe and with Faith Evans, that was part of me being on the show. So being on Versus and Flow allowed me to share the stage and then got to take pictures with them and stuff. And yeah, it was great to be able to be a part of that experience because when Belle Biv DeVoe performed, being on that same stage was like, oh my gosh.
Because you grew up with them too. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Come on. Even New Edition.
That's a New Edition. That's a New Edition. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Candy Girl, come on, come on, come on, son.
Man.
Come on, son. Yeah, come on. So it's just people that I grew up with and doing what I love to do and being able to share that stage, it's amazing.
We're getting close to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. birthday. It's coming up.
Monday.
It's Monday, and I live in gratitude every day. I feel like I'm living the dream. I mean, so you must be feeling like you live the dream too. I mean, what are some advice you would give up and coming artists out there who sometimes are like, I don't know, I'm just kind of, it's tough, whatever. I mean, what would you kind of give to them?
Same thing I tell. I have people come to me all the time, ask me, how do I get started? What do I do? Basically, the main thing I always tell them is be true to yourself. I think it's so important. And I think, with YouTube and other forms of social media and the internet, it's easy to, it helps because a lot of times your poems are now viral and so can go viral and get millions and millions of views. And I've seen this with different poems and poets that do this. However, I think it's easy to copy a certain style because you see that it works and you're like, oh, I can do something like that. Or you end up, liking a certain poet and it's easy to gravitate towards that style. I think it's so important to basically forge your own path, to do, basically to be true to yourself, to write what you know. I think for me, there's some things that I could not write about because I didn't experience them. Right. I don't know what it is to have an abusive father because my father was always there and he loved me. So if someone has that experience and they write about that, then I think that's awesome that they write about that. But if you've never experienced that, don't try to cultivate a story just because it's something that people will gravitate towards, or in a slam it may give you higher scores or whatever. So I think it's so important to write what you know and be believable because the thing is, because poetry is so expressive, people are going to know when you're coming from your heart. People are going to know when you're going to coming from, within. Lie. You can't lie.
Nope.
They see it in your eyes. They see it, in your passion. And so when you write about things that you are passionate about, that you love, that, really have an effect on you, then it's going to come out in your performance and it's going to come out and people are going to know that and gravitate towards that.
I think that's great advice for anything in life. Just basically come from you and come from your heart. Just kind of anything you do.
Absolutely. And what really helped me with that is I remember doing a show in Sacramento where I was born and raised. This is before I moved to Stockton. I was in Stockton 13 years before I came to LA.
Okay.
And so I was just brand new, doing my thing, did this show in Sacramento. And then I remember a guy coming up to me and he said, yo, you need to come, do these poems. You should come to the Bay Area. And I'm like, I don't know, because at that time I felt like my story wasn't universal. The things I was writing about wasn't universal. And he told me, he's like, nah, man, you don't understand. He's like, somebody needs to hear what you're talking about. There's going to be somebody out there you're going to affect. And people need to hear that. And when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing, because just because you may think you're not saying something that's popular or something that, people will love and gravitate towards, you don't know who you're going to affect or who needs to hear. I mean, I've done my friend's breast cancer poem, a lot of times now, and every time I do it, there's somebody every single time that comes up to me and says, yo, I really feel what you're saying. And I appreciate you putting that poem together, and everything you said really touched me because I've dealt with it, or my mother's dealt with it, or my grandmother dealt with it, and all these different kind of things. And so that's why I continue to do that poem. Even though it's hard, because it's about my friend dealing with this, it's necessary.
You bring up another good point. All these great points you're bringing up. That doesn't matter where you come from. It can affect and it can influence how you deliver and stuff, but your message could be someone 3,000 miles away in another small town. You know, I've been in Sacramento for years, and it's a valley. So Bay Area is the Bay Area,
right?
And that's very much the Bay. They're all kind of separate, kind of. I mean, you live up there. I live in both places, so I know how it is.
Right.
But you just never know. I mean, there's a bridge.
Absolutely.
There is a bridge, but there's a bridge that can bring them together. That what you're saying could totally affect somebody in Alabama, in a small town, or somewhere in Maine. I mean, who knows, right? Or in Puerto Rico, in some small, who knows?
Absolutely.
So just speak your truth, I guess. That's the best.
Absolutely.
That's
this is the best thing. The best thing. And like I said, a lot of people come up like, because I know what I dealt with, because I felt like some of my topics weren't popular. And some of my topics, people, maybe they wouldn't resonate with them because they didn't grow up like I did or what have you. But I still kept it. And still kept, of course, diversified, and I'm always going to speak my truth. Yeah. Always. I'm not going to let anything deter that. Yeah, I'm vastly different because I've grown in writing. I've grown in the topics that I can talk about now and that I feel comfortable talking about. So my poetry has diversified from when I was doing poems 10 years ago or what have you.
Oh, I'm sure.
However, it's always going to be my truth. I'm always going to speak about what affects me. I'm always going to talk about my faith. I'm always going to talk about, my family and how much I appreciate them, and sometimes the things that gets on my nerves with my family, because I love my family, but they sometimes do things that get on my nerves. Yes. So I may do a poem about that. So but it's all my truth. It's all my truth, and again, it's going to resonate with someone else.
And they can't take that away from you. Your truth. That's one thing they can't take away from you is your truth.
Absolutely.
They can't.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. 100%. They can't take away from you.
It's yours. What's coming up for you these days? What's coming up?
That's good. So I have a show, a performance actually tomorrow in Fresno. So this is a local, and they do a poetry slam there in Fresno, California. So I'm going to be going there, and I'm the featured artist there. And then I'm actually what's dope is, of course, moving into hosting.
Yes, folks, let's talk about that. He was brought to me at our holiday party for AfterBuzz Media. He was brought to my attention. I'd seen you, and I kind of knew who you were, but we were brought together, and so I work fast. I was like, that was a month ago.
Yeah, I know. So, you do work fast.
So you are a host. You're hosting.
I'm a host, and what's really dope is I talked about the Poetry Lounge. So what we've developed there, the Poetry Lounge, it marries the two things that I'm passionate about, which is hosting and poetry.
Perfect.
So there we created a show called The Wait, because when you go to that show, they have it every Tuesday night.
Okay.
It's the biggest in the country. So there's a line that starts forming about 6:30. They start at 9. Oh my God. Yeah, and it goes all the way up to the parking lot. Can you give me
when I'm waiting in line?
Yeah.
I was like, I know Lamb. I know the Saints. I know the Saints.
Right. Yes. So what we did is we created the show where we basically interview people in line. Yeah. And we find out their stories. We find out how they got involved with poetry, or maybe they're not poets. Maybe they just come to listen. What brought them there? What brought them to this particular show? Like, who told them about it? And if they do write poems, what do they write about? What inspires them? Yeah. So it's a show. We just started filming it last month. We're getting ready to release our first episode this month. So I'm really excited about that. And we're doing that twice a month.
Oh, very good. Now, I know you're not feeling. Are you up to doing a small piece for us? Pull it together so you can do a little small piece for us.
I'll do. Let's see. Let me get some water.
Yeah, get some water. Because if you aren't up to it, I know it's okay. But I know you were.
I know. I'll do a 1-minute poem.
Perfect.
Here we go.
Thank you.
To the guy who got my cousin pregnant and said he could care less about taking responsibility. How can you call yourself a father? Biologically, your son is connected to you, but like faulty wires, you're being shocked at your behavior. Your immaturity is priceless. A child wrapped in adult skin, you take drugs to numb your growing pains. Disappointment dressed in a 3-piece suit. Your kid anticipates your arrival like Confederates did docking slave ships, yet reparations will come before you do. You treat your woman like casualties, scoping at your next target like snipers in Vietnam or in DC, murdering hopes and dreams like they were tracks in the studio. When promises come out of your mouth, they are broken like levees in New Orleans. You must have an organ donor sticker on your driver's license because your heart has got to be missing.
Oh my God. That is good. That was a good thing. I know you know that was good. I
Thanks, man.
I got a mental picture of that situation.
Word. And that's what it's about. It's about painting that picture.
I got the picture.
Yeah.
I was like, I looked away for you to hear it, and I got the picture. I totally got it.
Word.
That was good.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much. Okay, where can people find you? First of all,
man.
Where can they find you? Tell them.
Find me all over social media. I'm at The Poet Saint on everything: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, at The Poet Saint. All day, every day. And if you're in the LA area, I'll be doing some new shows coming up this year. So definitely check out for me. And come out to the Poetry Lounge. That happens every single Tuesday. And you can be a part of our show, The Wait. Get there early, 6:30, 7 o'clock, and maybe feature on the show.
Thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely.
And we'll also be continuing to feature his progress like I do all the other artists who've been on my show. I will always probably put your stuff on my page.
Word.
On the Breaking Into page, of course, to follow more with him. Again, that's Breaking Into on Facebook, Black Hope LA on Twitter, and using the hashtag Breaking Into for BHL Online. As always, share knowledge, lift each other up, and pay it forward. I'm James Lott Jr. I'll see you next time.
From executives Kevin Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood Undefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.